Yo, what's up, guys? TheDylanUK here, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different video. We're going to be predicting the Premier League table, and this is pretty big. Premier League obviously starts today at 8 o'clock, I believe, with Manchester United and Leicester. Pretty big game, and I wanted to release this video a little bit earlier on. But when I found out that the transfer window for the Premier League actually ends earlier, I was thinking, you know what? Let's let that transfer window end, and then decide the Premier League table. Obviously, it's now finished, and yeah, we're going to basically be predicting the Premier League table. So I'm looking forward to this. If you guys do enjoy this video, please drop a massive thumbs up, and yeah, let's just get right down into this. So, wow, I can't even get my laptop to work. First of all right, but first of all, 20th place. You know, 20th. What is this? What? Oh, okay, cool. So 20th. For me, honestly, it's got to be Cardiff. Cardiff, decent team. They managed to come up from the Championship, of course. Ultimately, though, their squad is not good enough. It really is not good enough. Players they brought in, Bobby Reed, um, Harry Arter, decent players. But ultimately, it's not going to be enough for them to stay in the Premier League. Their squad even beforehand wasn't that good. But even with these signings, I don't feel it's going to be quite good enough. Maybe Bobby Reed can get a few goals in. They have a chance of staying out of relegation, but for me, they're going to get relegated. Um, Next position, 19th, Brighton. Yeah, again, not, signings wise, they made quite a lot of signings, but these signings are not outstanding signings, to be honest. In terms of standout signings, they brought in that guy, Jahan Bakahash. I think I pronounced it wrong. He's okay, I guess. Same with Florian Adone from Deportivo. Decent players. Martin Montoya probably being the standout signing, but ultimately, I don't think it's going to be quite enough for them to stay in the Premier League. And their squad, even beforehand, is not quite good enough. Obviously, they were in the Premier League last year and managed to stay up, but this year, I think they're going to go back down. So, yeah, sorry, Brighton, but I don't think it's going to be a good year for you guys. Same with Huddersfield. Huddersfield, 18th. Decent side. They actually started off pretty strong last season in the Premier League. But ultimately, this year, I do feel they're going to go back down. Signings wise, they made okay, as I said, for Cardiff, Cardiff and Brighton, decent signings. But ultimately, these signings are not good enough for them to stay in the Premier League. And I feel like they will go down. They managed to stay in the Premier League for one season, which is great, but they haven't really made outstanding signings as some of the other clubs have, and that's why I feel like they will go down. For 17th, it's going to be pretty tight. However, I feel like Southampton is going to finish 17th. Signings wise, they haven't really done much. They did bring in a few players. Angus Gunn from Man City, goalkeeper. He's pretty decent, but nothing too amazing. El Yunusi there, decent signing as well as Armstrong, pretty solid player for Celtic. And then Danny Ings from Liverpool, good striker, but ultimately their squad is not too great. They did lose out on Dusan Tadic for me, which personally I think is a huge loss. He was probably their best player, and now he's gone. So that's definitely going to cost them as well. And I think they will probably just about miss out on relegation. So I think they're going to finish 17th. 16th, I feel like it is going to be Bournemouth. Bournemouth, they're a decent side, but they're not too great. They played some decent football under Howie, but their squad, is not quite good enough in my opinion. Players they brought in, they brought in Diego Rico from Leganes, decent signing. Their big signing though, Jefferson Lerma from Levante, £25 million, huge signing. I believe he's the most expensive player of all time now. The biggest signing in the club's history. So, they're definitely going to be counting on him to, save them actually this season. And I can see him doing a good job, but ultimately it's not going to be enough to, finish maybe in the top half of the table. However, unless if they avoid relegation, I think that's a win for them. So they're going to be finishing 16th. 15th, for me, it's got to be, without a doubt, Newcastle. Now, Newcastle, I think they're good. personally. Obviously last season they managed to smash 3 past Chelsea on the last game of the season. But um, in terms of signings, they made good signings. For me, Ki Young from Swansea, that's a solid signing. Kennedy on loan again, he was decent for them the first time around, and I think he's solid. Rondon for West Brom, definitely better than their current striking option, so that's a good signing. And then Federico Fernandez from Swansea, he was a pretty stable Premier League player. And Shah from Deportivo La Coruna. So then decent signings there. They did lose on Mitrovic though, who I think he had quite a bit of potential. He could have done some good things for them, but obviously they let him go. Dwight Gay obviously went to West Brom as well. In terms of Rondon, however, I do think Rondon is an upgrade from Dwight Gale. But ultimately, I can see Rafa Benitez getting sacked, by December. However, I still feel they are going to stay in the Premier League, and it's going to be a big season for them. And I can see them getting relegated, but I think they'll, finish 15th, and staying out of relegation, I think, is probably their number one priority this season. 14th for me, it's got to be Watford for me. Now Watford, they've been good. They have Marcus Silva as their manager. Obviously now at Everton. For me, he was probably the main reason why they've done so well. He's no longer there, but I still think they're more than good enough to stay in the Premier League. And they did lose out on some pretty big players. Probably their best player for me, Richarlison, to Everton. However, they now have Deulofeu in as a permanent, so that's good. And I think he can definitely do some good for Watford. He's going to be a very important player this season. Ben Foster and goal, that's a good, solid goalkeeper they managed to bring in. And, otherwise than that, I think they're going to do fine this season. 14th, I feel like that's a good finish for them, and they should be happy with that. 13th for me has got to be Burnley. Obviously, last season they finished 7th, just missed out on top 6. Well, not just, quite a few points off. But ultimately, I don't think they're going to do as well this season. Signing-wise, they haven't brought in anything outstanding. Probably the standout signing is Joe Hart from Man City. But as we know, Joe Hart hasn't been doing too well in his previous 2 spells at West Ham and Torino. But ultimately, they really haven't lost any of their best players. I do think 13th place is a reasonable finish for them, and they should be happy with that, personally. 12th, for me, has got to be Crystal Palace for me, 12th. Now, Crystal Palace, they're a little bit of a weird team because they can do good, but they could also do pretty bad. They could maybe just about miss out on relegation, but maybe they can finish maybe just below 10th. However, this season, I think it's going to be a pretty good season for them. 12th, I think that's a good finish. They haven't really lost out on any of their big players. They managed to bring in Max Meyer, which is absolutely fantastic on a free. Fantastic signing there for them. And I think they're going to have a pretty good season this year. So 12th, I think, is a good finish for them. 11th is probably got to be, for me, one of the new teams, and it's going to be Fulham. Fulham, they've had a fantastic transfer window in terms of Fulham standards, in my opinion. They managed to bring in Seri, who's a huge signing for them. And he's definitely going to be one of their most important players this season. They managed to bring in as well Andre Schürrle, and as a Chelsea fan, I can say while he was at Chelsea, I absolutely really like Schürrle. He's a fantastic player in my opinion. It didn't really work out for him in Dortmund. However, I do see him doing very well in Fulham, and he's going to be another very important player for them this season. And ultimately, they've made good signings all around. Sergio Rico, Luciano Vieto, Mitrovic, Callum Chambers, good signings all around, and they really haven't lost out on any of their key players from last season. So I think it's going to be a very good season for them this year. And 11th is very good, just missing out on 10th. 10th is got to be, for me this season, Leicester. Now, Leicester, obviously, the big news on Leicester this season, 2 big news. They managed to keep Harry Maguire, which is fantastic. He looked like he was going to go Man U, but they lost out on Riyad Mahrez, probably their best player, to Man City. But they still have Vardy, which is always a plus. They managed to bring in Johnny Evans, solid centre-back, Ricardo Pereira, good right-back. And they also lost out on Musa, but he wasn't, really good for them, to be honest. But ultimately, Leicester finishing 10th, ex-Premier League champions, I think that's a good finish. And I feel like, they'll be pretty happy with that. Leicester fans should be pretty happy with that. 9th, I feel it's going to be one of the new boys. Yeah, again, it's going to be Wolves. For me, they've probably had, arguably, you can say they've had the best transfer window. They brought in lots of Portuguese players. They had a very good squad beforehand. Obviously, they had Jota and Neves, who are pretty good players. They were pretty crucial to them in winning the championship last season. Ruben Neves, fantastic midfielder, very young talent. Has a big future ahead of him. They managed to bring in Dendoncker van Anderlecht, a very promising Belgium's midfielder. Matt Jean Martino, fantastic player, lots of experience in them. He's going to be important for them this season. Obviously won the Euro. What's it called? The Euros with Portugal, of course. And they managed to bring Rui Patricio as well. Fantastic goalkeeper, very experienced, fantastic for Wolves. And ultimately, a very successful window for Wolves. I think they've arguably had, out of all these teams so far, they've had the best window. And even with some of the top 6 teams, in terms of actual bringing players to help the squad, Wolves have done the best, in my opinion. And I think you can say they've had the best transfer window, without a doubt. They may not have brought in big players like world-class players, but they brought in good squad depth, and they brought in players that are going to help the squad. 8th now, it's got to be West Ham. 8th. West Ham, big season for them. They've brought in good players. They really have. They've brought in some pretty good players. The only problem with West Ham for me are injuries. Lanzini is injured. Andy Carroll's injured. Antonio's injured. But they brought in players to replace those players, such as Lucas Perez in place of Andy Carroll and Antonio. He's pretty good. And the fact they got him for like 4 million, I believe, that's an absolute steal. We know what he was able to do in Spain. He didn't have quite as good as a spell at Arsenal, but I do feel at West Ham, if he can get game time, he can be very good. Jack Wilshere, midfielder option, very good signing for West Ham. If he can get game time, he'll be fantastic. Felipe Anderson and Yao Malenko, the 2 standout players. We both know how good they are. And, Felipe Anderson is probably the best signing for them, without a doubt. But a very important signing for me is Fabianski. He's very good in goal. I rate Fabianski very highly. He was very good for Swansea. At West Ham, with a better defence around him, especially now with the signing of Diop, I think it could be very, very good for them this season. So I feel West Ham finishing 8th, I can see it happening. 7th for me has got to be Everton. Everton, they've brought in players that I think are improvements to the squad. However, anything can happen with Everton, to be honest. But I feel with the signings they made, they should realistically, finish 7th. They brought in 3 Barca players: Digne, Gomez, and Mina. All fantastic players. Digne, definitely a good replacement for Leighton Baines, who is getting on a bit. Andre Gomez, when he was at Valencia, he was a fantastic midfielder. It didn't work out for him at Barca, but I feel like at Everton, he can definitely do a job there. And obviously Yerry Mina, fantastic player, fantastic centre-back, definitely a good replacement for Ashley Williams, who's now left, of course. Now, in terms of players, they did lose out. They lost Rooney, of course, who was probably their best player last season. They lost out on Klaassen as well, but it didn't really work out with Klaassen. However, with these new signings, I do feel it will work out. Richarlison, fantastic signing as well. 7th is a reasonable finish for Everton. 6th, it's definitely going to be very controversial from here onwards now, the table. And for me, 6th is going to be Tottenham. They have not made a single signing this transfer window. Now, it either tells you 2 things. Either Pochettino is very confident in his squad, or he's also very deluded in terms of not bringing players in. I feel like Pochettino knows what he's doing, but then again, I feel like their squad, they're going to be competing in the Champions League. That could cost players' fitness. They didn't really bring in players, squad depth, even though they've already had pretty good depth. But ultimately, they should have maybe brought in 1 or 2 actual world-class players. In terms of world-class players, Harry Kane for me is world-class. But Hugo Lloris for me is world-class. Alderweireld, world-class. They managed to keep hold of him, so that's pretty huge for them. But ultimately, I don't feel like these players are going to be good enough. And I think the Premier League this season for Tottenham is not going to be a very good season for them. So I think they're going to finish 6th. 5th place, Arsenal. Obviously, they have a new manager, Unai Emery. For me, it's going to be very tight. For me, 4th to 6th is going to be very tight for me. For me, either way, 4th to 6th, the teams can definitely be switched around, in my opinion at least. Top 3 could also be switched around, but ultimately I think 4th to 6th is going to be important. 5th place for Arsenal, here's why. they're going to be in the Europa League. That's going to cost them game time. Players, you know, they're not going to be very up for it, to be honest. They're definitely going to want to try and concentrate on the league as well, try and get a top four finish, and they may even try to win the league under this new manager. In terms of signings, they've done good. They brought in Lich signing, which is better than Bellerin, Leno better than Czech, and then Socrates, probably better than Koscielny and Mustafi. They brought in Lucas Torreira, who's another very solid midfield option. Definitely good replacements for Jack Wilshere and Santi Cazorla, who have left. I do think Arsenal have potential to get into the top four, and I think they can get into the top four, but I then again think they might not. And here's why. For me, fourth is going to be Man U. I don't feel like they're going to have a fantastic season this year. Signings have been okay, but in terms of what you would expect from Man United, it's not incredible. Fred, he's good, but he came from the Ukrainian league. Now, I can say the same thing for Willian, as we know. He came from the Ukrainian league, and we know, how well he managed to turn out. So ultimately, I think, he can turn out to be an absolute beast. Diego Dalot from Porto, very young talent, promising right back, I believe. So he'll probably be a replacement for Valencia. Lee Grant, backup goalkeeper for De Gea. That's okay, I guess. Players they've lost out on, they really haven't lost out on any of their big players. Probably the big player they lost out was Daley Blind, but to get 14 million out of him, that's pretty decent, I would say. But for me, Man U are not going to make. They are going to make top four, but I don't think it's going to be a good season for them personally. But they did manage to keep hold of players like Pogba and Martial, which for me is a win-win for them. So I can see them finishing higher, but to be honest, I think fourth place is where they're going to finish. Third, Chelsea. Now, I didn't want to be biased. For me, Chelsea was a little bit, probably the hardest one, to be honest, out of all of these teams. The thing with Chelsea is that they've made signings. Like, they bought in Robert Green. Okay, I'm joking. He's not a big player, but he's a decent backup player. They bought in Jorginho, which when they bought him in, I was thinking, wow, this might be a good transfer window for Chelsea. He was being linked with pretty much Man City for most of the transfer window, and the fact that he came to Chelsea, that's pretty good. Obviously, the fact that we have Sarri as the manager helped with the signing, but I think Jorginho is a very good player, and ultimately, I'm looking forward this season to seeing Kante and Jorginho. They brought in this guy as well, Kepa Arrizabalaga. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name. We're just going to call him Kepa, for a world record fee of £71 million. Do I think he's worth that? No way. Not at all. He's still young. He definitely has potential, but he's not better than Courtois, which in my opinion is probably the biggest loss for Chelsea this transfer window. But ultimately, if you guys want me to, I can make a separate video on the Courtois situation. I don't really want to go on too much about this transfer window, but Courtois is a big goalkeeper, and the fact that we lost him to this other guy is a bit of a loss. But then again, this guy has potential. We saw how well De Gea turned out. From Spain, he wasn't really the biggest goalkeeper in the world at the time, but now we know how good he is. Maybe it can be the same thing with this guy. And probably a very good signing, in my opinion, Kovacic from Real Madrid. However, even though it's only a loan, he can definitely do bits for Chelsea. I'm kind of upset that Chelsea didn't actually try and get money, the 35 million from Courtois, and then this guy as well on an actual permanent. But, Kovacic, he's definitely good. And at Chelsea, where I think he can get some game time, it's definitely looking promising for him. And ultimately, for me, in terms of Chelsea, it's been a good transfer window for Chelsea in two reasons. Well, one reason. Not mainly because of the players they brought in, but the players they managed to keep. They managed to keep hold of Kante, Hazard. These two players look like they were very likely to leave Chelsea, and ultimately they both stayed, which is fantastic for Chelsea. That's a huge win for Chelsea. They can still leave, of course. Obviously, we now know they can't go to another Premier League club, which I guess is good. But I do feel like both players will stay at Chelsea. Willian looks like he's definitely going to stay without a doubt at Chelsea, which is fantastic. But obviously we've lost Courtois, which is a loss. But I think Chelsea, this new goalkeeper, I think he can do bits for Chelsea this season, especially with a better defence in front of him now. With the defence he had at Athletic Bilbao, I do think he will be a very important asset to Chelsea this season. But then again, he could very much be the downfall to Chelsea this season. Second place, it's very tough, but it's going to be Liverpool for me. Liverpool have had a fantastic transfer window in terms of the top four clubs here, as you can see. Um, it's pretty tight between Liverpool and Man City, who has had the better transfer window. But for me personally, I feel like Liverpool have had the much better transfer window. Fabinho from Monaco, fantastic CDM, definitely very good. He should definitely be starting. Roma, what am I saying? Alisson from Roma, huge signing, huge signing. Better than Karius Minile by miles, 100%. He's a very good goalkeeper. I definitely rate him. Would I have said he's worth 66.8 million before they signed him? Well, when they signed him, no. But after the signing of Ari Zagbla, I guess you can say 66.8 million really doesn't look too bad, to be honest now. But he's a very good goalkeeper. Shaqiri from Stoke, 30 million, absolute steal. For me, Shaqiri is definitely a very underrated player. I think he's very good, especially at Liverpool now. We can definitely see the best of Shaqiri, in my opinion. With better players around him, I think he can do bits for Liverpool. And then Naby Keita, fantastic central midfielder from Leipzig, probably the best player from the past few seasons. Well, the past 2 seasons while he was out there, last season, the season before that. And for Liverpool to get him, it's a very good signing. I've heard that he's pretty much like the Kante of the Bundesliga. So the fact that they managed to get him for 48 million, I think that may be a very, a steal actually. So very good signing there from Liverpool. They lost Jan to Juventus on a free transfer, which kind of does suck. That they didn't manage to get any cash for him. But then again, for me, Fabinho is a much better upgrade. Is a much better player than Emre Can. It's a huge upgrade. And Liverpool will be finishing second. It will be very tight between them and first place, which obviously is going to be Man City. But I think it's definitely going to be a huge season for Liverpool. And then Man City. In my opinion, they've had not the best transfer window ever. They've only brought in Riyad Mahrez, who's a fantastic player, no doubt about it. But did I feel they needed him? Not really. For me, Bernardo Silva, Sterling, Sane, they're all good enough, in my opinion, for that position already. But bringing in Mahrez just brings in more competition now. Other signings, they haven't really brought in any other outstanding players. But in terms of players they sold, they haven't lost anyone at all. So they still have the same squad. And the difference with Man City and Tottenham is Man City already have a Premier League winning squad. Tottenham, even they have a good top four finish squad, is not good enough in my opinion. And this season, we're going to see that with Tottenham, in my opinion. But Man City, they've got a fantastic squad. I feel they're going to win the Premier League again. However, there's no doubt about it. Anything can happen this season. I do kind of want. It would be great to see Liverpool win the Premier League finally, but I think Manchester City's going to win it. But anything can happen in the Premier League, guys. We know. For me, this is probably going to be one of the hardest predictions this season in the Premier League. And ultimately, I feel like, any one of these teams could win the Premier League. Any of the top 6 teams could win it. But ultimately, I think it'll be Man City again this season. And yeah, that's my prediction, guys. So, comment down below what you think. Tell me what I done wrong. Tell me what I done right. But ultimately, this is who I think is going to win this is my Premier League predictions. Let me just confirm that. Yep, there's my Premier League predictions, guys. If you feel the same, let me know. Comment down your predictions as well, guys. But these are mine, and hopefully I get them right. But obviously, as a Chelsea fan, I want Chelsea to win the league. But if this is how it ends by the end of this season, if this is how it ends, I'll be pretty happy with that, actually, to be honest. I do think they're reasonably good predictions. But obviously anything can happen. And yeah, let's hope this year's Premier League is going to be a fantastic Premier League year. But that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please drop a massive thumbs up. Stay tuned for the next video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, peace.